that needed to be corrected. Let's start first with an overview of your relationship with Sammy Davis Jr., how it started, how long it lasted, and just give us that basic overview.
Okay, well, as long as it lasted, his lifetime, and until he passed. How it got started was simple. I was in high school. My father was a very, very important agent in this town, one of the biggest, probably the biggest. And he took a small variety show to Hawaii for the 442nd Nisi group that fought for us in the Second World War.
Famous outfit.
A small variety show. And it was my summer vacation from high school. And my dad asked me, did I want to come? Because I'd never been out of the country. And I said, sure. And it went. And when it got there was only the two youngest people on the show were Sammy and I. So naturally we hooked up, and we became very, very close friends from that day on. And one of the things that we started doing, and don't ask me how or why it started, because I can't remember that, we started out playing fist fighting, because both of us are movie buffs, but he was a big movie buff, and we became very adept at it. So much so that we started one of these fights in a restaurant in Hawaii, and we busted a couple of chairs, and we both caught the devil from our fathers, who were both there, his and mine.
Will Maston, his father.
No, Sam Sr.
Oh, okay.
Sammy Davis Jr. Will was his uncle. And from then on, it just progressed. We just became friends, and later on, Sammy was still not a star by any stretch. He just came out of the Army, and I won't go into that's an interesting story, but I'd let him read the book to find out about that. He used to come out. He used to take the red car, which used to be right outside your building here, the streetcar, to my house out in the valley, and he would come to my house. He would spend the night. He would sleep in a sleeping bag by the side of my bed in my bedroom. And he used to dance across the picnic tables in the park, which I live across the street from still to this day. And he play Fred Astaire. And then, of course, as he developed, became bigger, started, and then came the cars and the chauffeurs and all of that.
Well, and you worked with him not only in training, but as a lighting consultant and a variety of things over a 25-year period of time.
Right, because, so happens I just came across this picture the other day, a picture of me on the stage crew in high school. So I knew about the lights and sets and this and that, of course, but I hung with my dad all the time. And I was walking through dressing room with very scantily dressed women when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, so it didn't mean much to me from that angle at all. And so then when we got into this, I just was kind of like Sammy's buddy and to do this and that, which then worked itself into the lighting and the sound and make sure the music got put out, and so it just kept accelerating itself.
And on top of that, you became super close friends. You were always there for him in tough situations. Whenever he was down, he looked at you, and you were there as an emotional figure for him.
Yes, because of us being so close, so young.
Right.
He would open himself up to me when never to anybody else.
Right.
Never, not even not to his father for sure.
Well, before we get into his life after you became close with him, tell us why you wrote the book and what type of experience it was for you writing the book.
Well, it was first of all, it was a journey of 7 years. My wife was pounding on me for years and years and years to write a book. Not because I was out doing my normal job that I did all my life after Sammy. I just had other things to do. It's true. Show business is show business. The show must go on, and I just never found the time. There's an incident that happened from Sammy's mother and the Inquirer magazine that really kicked it over the edge. If you want to hear that, it's very brief.
Sure.
There was a picture on the front of the Inquirer of Sammy and some guy standing behind him, and Sammy was standing in front, and he had his fingernail painted with red paint. And it says, Sammy Davis Jr. in Devil Cult Worshiper, one of their typical headlines.
Sure.
Well, Sammy's mother, who never inspired to anybody, was never involved really in his life, other than being his mother, but I mean, they never hung around with it, went to the Inquirer. They got a retraction from them. Well, I got so mad when I read it. I saw that, and then the retraction. The next day I says, no, these people have just pushed me too far.
Mm-hmm.
And I started writing the book. And one night we were in Australia, and Sammy and I used to talk way.
Now
later.
this was later, after.
Yeah,
you kind
I'm
of
trying
split
to.
apart.
We've jumped a lot. We've jumped
Right.
a lot of time, but to answer.
Yeah, this is a key story in terms of why you wrote the book.
We were talking, and just generally talking. Sammy said something funny or off the cuff, and I said, you know, someday I think I'm going to write a book. And he became very serious, and he never called me Silber. He always called me Arthur or Art. When he got serious, it was Arthur or really Silber. And he said to me, and I quote, Silber, if you do, make it right. Tell it right, is what he said. And that's what I did, because so much misinformation has come out. It is so wrong, and people, it builds.
Right, you wanted to correct tales that have become fact through retelling
Exactly.
or been reported in biography, so this was also part of your motivation.
Exactly, exactly. There's so much of that. There's more of that that people write about than really is not true. And you can't contradict me because, one, I have the pictures to prove it, because he and I became camera buffs. That's part of the story we'll get to a little bit later. And I have those pictures. You can't contradict the pictures. They can't contradict me. I lived it 24/7.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, now by the time you met Sammy, he'd already been in show business on vaudeville since he was 3 years old. So he was an accomplished performer for decades already by the time you met him. Talk about his early years in terms of where he learned all his, he played a lot of instruments. Go through the legion of famous people he learned from.
Okay, a lot of people are amazed about all the things Sammy could do, play instruments, etc., and this and that. Back in the early days, all he did was dance. But when you're in New York, and you're two young guys that don't have any money, can't go to the theater and this and that. We used to hang out. We had 3 places we hung out at: a record store, then there was a little gallery that to play machines, and that we used to do that, and then we hung out at the Apollo Theater. To answer your question, I'll pin it on the Apollo Theater. And I met more stars, which became giant stars later on down the line. Well, Sammy used to watch. Every night we were there, we would go to talk to the people, and he would stand in the wings, and he would watch them. And then he would ask them, how do you do this? How do you do that? So I'll cover a space of 3 different instruments. I don't know how many black stars in this world can play a vibraphone with 6 mallets at the same time. Sammy can, and did often. Drums, often. Where did he learn to play drums like that? Well, of course, this is goodness gracious, Lionel Hampton.
Right.
Lionel Hampton taught Sammy what it was to play the drums and to play them right, and so we can't have a much better teacher than that.
No.
And as he went down the line, and he runs into these different people that played the instruments, he always used to pick it up or go out and buy one when he got the money and say, teach me how to do this. He was a very fast learner, terribly fast learner. And not only, there was one night in San Francisco at the Fairmont Hotel, the jazz concert in the United States was touring the United States. And in the Fairmont, Sammy, we were headlining there that night, and in comes Gene Krupa and give me the other one, only 2 of them. Oh, come on, Arthur.
Buddy Rich.
Buddy Rich. We're both in the audience at the same time.
Right.
Well, you know that Sammy's going to drag them out. You've got to know that. He did. He had his own drums. They were on a rolling tripod. He brought them out, and there was a battle of drummers at that night. This is one of those places where you had to be there then and see it, because it came and it went, and it was gone.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime.
A once-in-a-lifetime thing, and we had a lot of those in our life. But
Well,
that
that's
was
great.
very interesting.
Okay.
Hold
So-
on 1 second.
Sure.
I'm gonna adjust something real quick.
Okay. Is everything going okay?
Right.
Okay, good.
Just like
Put
the
film in
I think I'm going to get a
camera.
job with the One Network.
Tiniest detail. I just want to make sure you can just see the tiniest
Oh,
edge of
right.
that. It's so
Just
silly.
move back
Right.
again.
What?
It
I
just
think
moved. Did you got it? Because if I pick my arm up off the table. Well, use the tape. Tape it on the inside of the table. That comes from being a stage manager.
One last little place.
Oh, here, wait a minute.
I'm losing it.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold it up. Put it where you want to put it.
Let me just make sure.
Now hold it. Is that where you want it?
Let me just see. So I'm just seeing the thing about it is that tape
It's just a little too
was
long.
a little too wide. There we go.
No, you won't see this. You won't see this on the camera, I can assure you.
That's perfect. Then right there.
Well, hold the book because I want to press against it now. Okay. Well, you want one on the other side too?
Let me just see if you do what you need to do on the table. I just want to make sure it's not gonna.
Yeah, but I want to pull loose. Well, I don't think it's
It'll
going to
be
pull
okay, I
loose.
think.
It's pretty.
It's
works.
good? Okay.
All right. Just readjust real quick. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So let's start now. In the Harlem in the early 50s was the golden age of Harlem in a lot of ways. Let's start with a couple of stories in that leading to the famous spot on the Eddie Cantor show, which was a big break, and that's a fascinating story in terms of Sammy's life. And I think, Eddie Cantor did a great service in that, what he did.
He did. And by the way, a wonderful, wonderful man personally, Eddie Cantor. Eddie Cantor, in his day, other than being a big vaudeville star and movie star, was the Johnny Carson. And the show was the Colgate Comedy Hour. That was it. And that was Eddie Cantor's show. And he had the trio on. And he
The Will Maston Trio.
The Will Maston Trio appeared on the show. And he just took a special liking to Sammy. And during the course of the rehearsal, because that show rehearses for almost a whole week before they do it once a week.
And it was live TV.
Live, oh yeah. Kinescoped, but live. At any rate, he asked Sammy would he do something special, dancing-wise. Sammy didn't really want to do that because he was very connected up with the trio. He hit it to pull. He fought that all his life as he became better known. He fought because he kept standing more further out from his dad and his uncle. They could only go so far. He just kept going. At any rate, so Sammy did the Eddie Cantor show, and he did this number. Tore the place apart. Not far from where we're sitting right now, by the way. And Eddie Cantor walked out. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go take one step back. During rehearsals, Eddie Cantor was sitting in the dressing room talking to Sammy. Because Sammy was very enamored of this big star. Well, as was I, because we were both two young guys. He was wearing just a T-shirt and slacks. He was wearing a mezuzah. Sammy asked him what it was, and Cantor told him, explained it to him what it was. All right, now we have to jump to the end of the show. The show goes on, and Cantor walks out, and he takes out his pocket handkerchief, and he mops Sammy's brow. Well, the South was ready to start the war again in about 2 minutes. The phones lit up, the lines lit up. How could this, all the racial stuff you can possibly think of back in that era, and even maybe today, but certainly then.
1954 was the time.
It really, oh yeah, it really hit. And Cantor went to Colgate and put his line on the job and said, this is my show, I'll do what I want, I'll have on who I want, or else you can take it and do whatever you want with your show. Of course, Colgate Palmolive couldn't afford to lose Cantor, and they had to buy it. And Cantor said at that meeting, he said, and also, I'm having on again next week, which he did. But Sammy was so upset by what happened that he thought he brought this on to Mr. Cantor, as he called him. He never said Eddie or any of that. Sammy was always very polite. Like Elvis Presley, he was always Mr. Sir, I do it to myself, and I'm 74 years old, and I still do it.
Well, and I believe then he went to Eddie Cantor's house. And
yeah, he went to apologize to Eddie. Well, he had me call him on the phone, and Eddie invited him to the house. And Eddie Cantor would not accept the apology. Long story shorter, as we went to leave, he said, Sammy, I want to give you something. He gave Sammy a box, and it was a mezuzah, which Sammy never took off. Almost never took off. Now we're going to have to jump ahead. You want me to follow this?
Well, because we know that the mezuzah, it's a Jewish religious symbol, and it plays into what happened to Sammy soon after, because there was a major car accident and Sammy lost an eye, and so the mezuzah story then continues on with the accident. So go into the accident and the follow-up.
Okay, Sammy was being close friends of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. We all hung out together back in those days. Tony Curtis was doing Six Bridges to Cross, a major movie for him, and he wanted Sammy to sing the title song, so he invited Sammy to do so. So Sammy and his valet Charlie were driving in from Vegas after their second show, which was late at night there, and they drove in, and the big accident happened. Now, if you want me to go into that, I can. But that's
well, I know what happened in San Bernardino, and he hit an abutment, a cement abutment at high speed, and it was a horrendous accident.
It was a horrendous accident, but that's stretching a little point.
Right.
A couple of important things.
Okay.
The two elderly ladies meant to go down one road, backed across his highway, and he had no place to go. There was two cars coming the other way at him. He did hit them. The first car went by. He went between the first and second car, and he did hit this abutment. It was the entrance to a driveway, and pushed the motor of this Cadillac right into the back seat. And if he wasn't as thin as he was, he would have died. However, he was driving a Cadillac that had a cone on the horn. It was part of the horn on the car. Because that's what put his eye out, actually popped it like a grape. And Cadillac changed the design of their steering wheel because of that accident.
Oh, that's interesting.
And next time we jumped to the hospital. And Sammy, for 3 days, we didn't know whether he was going to lose the sight of both the eyes. One eye we know was gone. But somehow the nerves, your eyes are connected to one another. And the doctor explained, he says, we won't know for 3 days if the other eye is going to be any good. So Sammy was laying there, and he was really not only in pain, but in a bad mood, because not only lost an eye, he also broke his nose and cracked his left knee on the emergency room. People don't know that. That's another part of the story. So, at any rate, and he never had his nose. The doctor asked him if he wanted to fix his nose. He said, no, leave it like it is. At any rate, he was very worried about whether he was ever going to be able to perform again. And one of the first visitors outside of Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, which, by the way, when they came to visit him, he was on a cart in the hospital, still groggy. And they pressed a Star of David, gave him a Star of David in his hand, and he pressed it. It took two people to open up his hand. They had the mark of the Star of David in his hand for 2 days from Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh. That's something you didn't know about either. But at any rate, first visitor was Eddie Cantor. Now I have to stop here and back up just a little bit. The night after Sammy did the second show, because he was coming into Hollywood, he went in to take a shower. He took the mezuzah off and he put it on the dresser next to the shower door, which is something he never usually did, but he did.
And he forgot
It slid off the dresser and fell on the floor. It's not this big, and it got a chain on it, zip, right to the floor. All right, now we go back to the hospital. Eddie Cantor comes to visit. The whole hospital, the hubbub, because it's the biggest star. At any rate, they were talking, and it hit Sammy then. I was in the room when this happened. It hit Sammy then. He says, "My God, I wasn't wearing the mezuzah." Now you know I'm telling the truth because I told you that. And Eddie just wouldn't accept that. But that's lived with Sammy for years, that he wasn't wearing a mezuzah, and kind of did not blame it on, but thought maybe that's what God
Well,
wanted.
I also read in the book how he said he got visited by a chaplain at the hospital, but it was a rabbi.
Yeah, it's just truly, it so happens that the in-house clergy at that particular day in that house, because they change, happened to be a rabbi, came in and started talking to Sammy, and Sammy kept asking questions because remember, he still had bandages on. And the rabbi was giving Sammy the right answers. And Sammy's grandmother, who was Catholic, Sammy never believed, and I'm quoting Sammy now, never believed in idols and things like that. But what he was hearing from the rabbi made sense to him.
And he went on later
converted, got all the books, and did all of the stuff he's supposed to do.
Okay, well, let's skip ahead a little bit and go to, I guess there was one of the big controversial incidents was his relationship with Kim Novak, and the fallout from that, as it were, for both of you. So why don't you tell that story? It's a famous story, and
I will, and I'll keep it short because it's a long
Okay.
story. But at any rate, yes, there was a love affair. Yes, it was a very big love affair. And everybody in between this coast and the East Coast, including Walter Winchell in New York and Irving Kupcinet in Chicago, and Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons out here, and a few of the others, everybody knew there was something going on, but nobody could prove it because nobody could see it. And for two guys who carried cameras with them wherever we went, there was agreement between us. There was never a picture between Sammy and I. Had nothing to do with Kim. Never a picture would be taken of them together. As the relationship developed, and it was pretty quick developing, they really were in love. They really were.
this is about 1956.
Yeah. And we'd gone into the Sands Hotel. Now in these days, when you played the hotels in Las Vegas, you didn't go in for 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. You went in for 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks sometimes.
And 2 shows a night.
And 2 shows a night. So we had just moved into our suite, and I'm sitting in my bedroom, which was my bedroom and Sammy's bedroom were right next to one another, and there was a door between us, so I could sit on my bed and look on his bed in the bed. And there's guys walking around in there with stuff hanging off their belts and this and that, and they go in the front room and they're installing a phone. So naturally, what is this all about? He said, well, this is for the calls from Kim coming in, they don't run through the switchboards. He says because it's a true story that Las Vegas operators, no pun intended, are very famous for listening in to conversations of stars. And there was a password. Now, the password goes to develop into something bigger down the line if we go through this whole story, but
we probably don't have time for that.
We don't. There's only 2 people were allowed to answer the phone, me or Sammy.
Right.
Now, mind you, I had never met this woman ever in my life. Never. And the phone rings. I just happened to be in the front room, and it was her. And I'm telling you, as sexy as you think she was, and it was all natural. She was never part of the Hollywood scene. She was never part of that. That's why she never lived here. She had a home in Beverly Hills, but she never